Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with the Hadar II. This probably looks a little familiar to you. It's kind of a Galil looking type of rifle hidden underneath a bunch of wood, and we'll talk about that here a little bit later in the video. But some of you guys probably didn't live through, or you were just too young to remember, the ban era here in the United States. And there was an era where rifles like the Galil, even AR-15s and a bunch of different types of rifles, AKs and all sorts of stuff, were subject to all sorts of import bans and restrictions. And this rifle comes from that era. So it is a Galil hiding underneath all this wood, and it's closely related to the 7.62x51 Galil rifle, but also the Galil sniper rifle. And we'll talk a little bit about that history in today's video. What's interesting about this rifle is that not many of them were brought into the United States. Originally, they were intended for the German market. The Germans changed some laws and they couldn't be imported into Germany. So IMI decided, we'll send them to the Americans. And that only occurred in the year of 1989. So there's not very many of these floating around. But I do have this. I have an original Galil 7.62x51 rifle here that I want to show you, and we're going to do a little bit of shooting with both of them, and hopefully enjoy today's video taking a look at a very rare piece of American shooting history. So let's get started today. Right now I have a 10-round magazine in it. Originally they had 4-round magazines. The even more rare 10-rounder is in this particular rifle. I've had it for many, many years, and I think I have 5 rounds loaded. We'll go ahead and charge her up, fire off those 5 rounds. Then let's take a closer look at this really interesting piece of history. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. All right, so the Hadar II. This is a very interesting rifle. So back in the 1960s, 1967, Israel found itself in what was known as the Six-Day War. And after that war, they decided they wanted to domestically produce an infantry rifle because they wanted to be able to control production. Many countries, United States included, demand that if you're going to procure a weapon system that's not designed or manufactured here originally, that production has to move to the United States because in time of war, we don't want our weapon systems cut off. And so that's what the Israelis had done. Now, they took a look at a number of different weapon systems, and they ultimately decided the AK was probably the best choice given the environment in which they operated. Now, about that same time, you had the Finns that had taken the AK and polished it into what we know as the RK-62 or Valmet in other people's terms. People probably don't know what RK-62 is. Think of the Valmet. It was highly considered one of the best AKs ever made. Well, the Israelis took a look at that, some of the improvements that the Finns had made, and they made additional improvements on top of that and also maintained an extremely high level of quality in that production. And that became the Galil rifle. It was originally chambered in 5.56 and intended for use as a standard infantry rifle. Didn't last long in that role. They're back to the M16, Tabor, X95, all that stuff later on. But then the weapons would be sold overseas, and they continued production for many years, and they were popular globally. They were even popular here in the United States as semi-automatic civilian rifles, the Galil, that is. Later, in the 1980s, the Israelis decided they wanted a Galil chambered in 7.62x51 or 308 or 7.62 NATO. And that's when this weapon came into being. I believe that was right around 1983. And so they also decided that they wanted to produce a precision rifle, which was called the Galil. And the Galil would be more closely related to the Hadar II than this particular rifle. This rifle, as you see it here, was primarily intended for export. They didn't really want to use it domestically. And the version of it, the sniper rifle version of it, which this is more based on, is what they wanted to use domestically. Now, there's not a whole lot of differences between the Galil and the standard 7.62 Galil, but this, again, has features that were borrowed directly from the Galil. First of all, you'll notice on the original Galil, they had this upturned charging handle. And that upturned charging handle is so the operator could run the bolt with their left hand by simply reaching up and running their hand across the top of the receiver. Most AKs just have a bolt handle sticking out over here, so you'll see the AK roll. They wanted to do away with that. All right. The Galil sniper rifle, because it had a scope mounted on top, couldn't really use that upturned charging handle, so they moved it back out to the side. And that is what the Hadar II has. All right, so with all that being said, we'll field strip this, show you what it looks like on the inside as compared to a standard Galil rifle. You'll find that it's like 98, 99% the same, but there are distinct differences. And this, again, was intended for the commercial market and wasn't intended for any type of military or law enforcement type sales. Now, this rifle was originally intended for the German market. The Germans changed their laws. They couldn't export the gun to Germany, so IWI decided, or I'm sorry, IMI in this case, they changed names. They said, well, let's just send it to America, and they did that in 1989 for a single year. And then they ended the production run after they unloaded them over here, and they kind of went away, and that's why they're extremely rare here in the United States market. Now, the Galil sniper rifle, I don't even know if those things are even available in the United States. So they're very, very rare. But these are so closely related that if you can find the furniture for a Galil sniper rifle, you can easily convert this into one, and that would be really cool, but I have no intentions of ever trying to do that. So when you're loading up the rifle, with the Galil, it's really easy to look down and see that the safety's on. It's not so easy with this because the wood kind of covers it up. So you have to kind of pay attention to your selector lever over here. So you have to take it off safe, put it on fire to load it. Take your magazine. I want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. Been shooting Federal ammunition my entire life. Love the stuff. Great company, great people. 150 grain ball. It's a rock and lock, just like every other AK, and I almost dropped that in the snow. And then to charge it, just like that. And she's ready to rock. 10 whole rounds with that Ban Era magazine. So the Hadar II originally came with a 4-round, not a 5-round, a 4-round magazine. Out here I have the even more rare 10-round magazine that I keep in the rifle. This is the 25-round magazine that would be used in the export military versions of the Galil rifle. So it just gives you an idea of what those would look like. Sadly, I didn't bring the 4-rounder out. So starting off back here, we have traditional wood furniture with a thumbhole stock. You have a recoil pad back here. As we move forward, you'll notice that there's still a Galil AK style safety lever there that's just hidden beneath the wood with the thumb tab removed from it so it'll clear the wood. Over here on the other side, it has that lever that allows you to put it on safe for fire. When you see the red dot, that means the weapon's ready to fire. When it's covered, it means the weapon is on safe. Now you will notice that that is the exact same functionality that we had on the Galil rifles. So the Hadar just kind of copied that, but put it into a wood stock. Now you'll notice that on the military style rifles, you have a rear sight that's directly mounted to the top cover, and it's very rigid and reinforced. It's very tight, and that's one of the improvements the Israelis made. That's carried over to the Hadar II, but it's a different style of rear sight. You still have an aperture back here that is adjustable for 300 and 500 meters as it's marked. And then moving forward, you have a protected really large ears and really tall front sight that's adjustable for elevation. And this rear sight is adjustable for windage. So that's how you would zero the rifle. Now the top cover between this and the Galil, I could swap these around. The height of the sights would probably be different. I haven't tried to do that and shoot it, but the top covers are literally identical. As a matter of fact, aside from the charging handle and the bolt carrier, most of these parts are very similar. The front block where the gas tube plugs in, where the gas block is, that's going to be different. The top cover is slightly different, and the bolt is slightly different. But everything else internally is going to be very much just like the standard Galil ARM that you see over here. Now, it's interesting to note that up here they have this polymer piece that's inset into the wood, and that's because AKs violently throw the brass forward, and that could damage the wood. So they had enough foresight to put this in here, and you kind of see some little dings there where the brass hits. And you'll also notice that the gun destroys the brass, as a lot of AKs do. Puts a nice big crease in it, so it's not going to be friendly for reloading. The wood is all one piece with the thumb hole stock, comes all the way out to the end. You'll notice it has old school sling mounts, front and rear. So here's the front sling mount. The rear one's going to be set back here. And you have two screws holding the stock to the receiver. The receiver itself is standard Galil fare, so it is identical for the most part to the receiver on the ARM that we have over here. Gas tube, all the same. Out here we just have a bare muzzle. Now whoever had this before me thought it would be a good idea to use a set screw type muzzle device and put it on there. I removed that many, many years ago, but you can still see the evidence of that having been there marred up the end of the barrel, unfortunately. The trigger and mag release are all identical to the ARM. So you'll see that the mag release is the same. So there's a lot of carryover. All right, so that's pretty much it on the features. On the outside, talked about the selector lever for the safety, all that good stuff, how the sights work. Now let's take a look inside of the rifle and see how it looks and compare that to the ARM that we have here. And you're going to see it's pretty much the same rifle internally. All right, so let's take the Hadar II apart and see what makes it tick. Now it's, again, identical in terms of how you would field strip a standard Galil. So you have this really exaggeratedly large pin back here, and this is part of the recoil system. And so AKs are typically much stubbier. This is quite long, so you push it all the way forward until it's inside that top cover, wiggle that top cover, and it'll pop right off. Here you can see the Hadar II markings on the top cover. Over here on this side of the receiver, you can see the Hadar markings and then the serial number. Now this is 914, so I'm guessing they maybe made 1,000 of them. Who knows? They start off in the 100,000 arena, I believe, because every single one of them has been in the 100,000 range that I've seen, and this is number 914. Now, if all 1,000 of them made it in the United States, I don't know. To take your recoil spring guide rod out, just push it forward like a Galil or an AK and set it aside. Take your charging handle, pull it to the rear. Oops, got to take that safety off. Pull it to the rear, and it'll just pop right out. And like an AK, rotate that bolt, take it out. And there you go. Gas tube, not held in place. You don't have a lever like on an AK. It just pulls back, and that's it. So if you look inside there, that looks an awful lot like a standard Galil. So what does a standard Galil parts kit looks like, or parts look like? Glad you asked. Hadar II. Here's the gas tube to the ARM. Here's the bolt and carrier to the ARM. Recoil spring and guide rod. And top cover. So as you can see, very similar. You can swap them out if you wanted to, for whatever reason. I don't recommend it. Gas tubes, identical. Bolts, carriers, identical. Now, I could put this in here, which would be kind of different, and it would work just fine. But I don't want to pirate parts from my Galil ARM because these are highly collectible as well. So that's it. Very simple to maintain, very elegant, and a lot of fun to shoot. Now, one thing I've noticed about the 308s, both the ARM and the Hadar II, is that if you pin that trigger when you're shooting it, it has vicious trigger slap. So when you shoot it, press that trigger and then quickly release it. And that will prevent you from getting your finger slapped, especially in the cold out here, like in the 20s that it is today. It can get a little bit painful. So when you fire it, just kind of press and release, press and release, press and release. Pin that trigger and you're going to feel a really wicked trigger slap. Put it back together, super simple. I'm going to show you a little trick here. I've showed it in other Galil videos, but I'll show it in this one too, because a lot of people struggle with putting Galils back together. So the gas tube, it just has a little dovetail back here. You just lay your gas tube in here, line it up with the front, and just slide it forward. And just slide it forward like that. And hold it in place, because if you raise that muzzle, it's going to fall right back out. Take your bolt. Stick that into the carrier, just like an AK. Push the bolt forward, hold it with your thumb. Set the gas piston in there. Slide that forward, push it down, and all the way forward. Take your recoil spring, guide rod, stick that in, and this is where the trick comes in. Because this is so long, it's almost impossible to push it forward with your thumb and get the top cover down. You'll struggle with it. I've seen people on the internet complaining about it. Here's the simple trick. Push this forward and balance it on the edge. This is what it looks like when it's in the locked position with the top cover on and it's sticking way out. Push it forward and down a little bit where it's just balancing on the edge there, like that. Take your top cover, goes into a slot up here in the front, set that rear down, fits very tightly. Now you'll see how that's staying in the little window there. To get it to pop out, just charge it. Okay, so we'll leave that in there. That'll occasionally happen. Put the top cover on, wiggle it down, hold it in place, charge it, and it pops out. Could make that a blooper, but we're gonna leave it in there. All right, so we'll just make sure everything's functioning correctly, and that's it. So very, very simple to disassemble, and some would argue it's ugly. I think it's actually quite beautiful. Let me know what you think about the rifle in the comments down below. I hope gun owners today, especially the younger generations, don't have to live through the ban eras like I've lived through and many of us have that produced weapons like this. Now, you know, many years later, it's fun having this and looking at it and reminding myself of where we've come from and hopefully where we never go to again. But that requires you to be politically active. Folks, things like this happen when we don't vote and we don't take politics seriously. We just kind of coast. So I won't get up on my soapbox, but please join an organization like Gun Owners of America or something like that and become politically active so we don't have to find ourselves buying guns like this, or even worse, having them completely taken away from us. With that being said, beautiful rifle from a bygone era, and thank goodness it is gone. And yeah, collectible, modern collectible, most definitely. Beautiful rifle, fun to shoot. If you have one, post down below. You probably shoot yours more than I shoot mine, and let me know how it's performing for you. Me, I'm going to put it back in the safe. I'll drag it out in another decade or so, shoot it again, maybe make another video. If you guys have any questions about the Hadar II, you can ask those questions down below. I do try to stick around for the first couple of days after I post a new video to answer any questions you guys may have. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. Thank you guys for 17 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we will talk to you guys soon.